Recent documents from the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, show that there are about 110 Antiguans who are on the list to be deported out of the United States. Prime Minister Gaston Brown said that Antigua and Barbuda has no choice but to accept its deported nationals, and that the country have an obligation to take them back even if they are in the United States illegally. Nana Gyamfi has a different perspective. She is the executive director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, or BAJI. She recently urged Caribbean leaders to refuse to sign deportation documents to accept their nationals back home. She noted that no deportations can take place unless the home country agrees to accept their citizens. Gyamfi highlighted that some of the deportees who are branded as criminals were wrongfully accused of crimes, and they simply accepted simple charges so that they can get back to work. But the Prime Minister Mr. Brown, doesn't believe that Antigua and Barbuda have a moral or even legal basis on which to stand other than to accept them and to find productive ways to engage them. Mexico and Colombia has recently refused to accept nationals being deported from the United States on military aircraft, and Trump has threatened to impose sweeping retaliation measures against Colombia, including tariffs and visa sanctions. Colombia later recanted, with the government stating President Gustavo Petro had arranged from his presidential plane to travel to the U.S. and to bring the deportees back in a dignified manner. Last year it was reported that Trump transition team had approached the governments of multiple Caribbean nations to accept people whose country refused them. Prime Minister Brown was asked of this proposition, and he responded saying that it will be challenging without the proper financial support. But outside of that, he said, the nation does not want to go beyond accepting those who are Antiguans who are living in the United States illegally. Now it's starting to make a lot of sense. I realize that for the past few years, there's a group of chocolate-coated looking people in the United States who attack immigrants, chocolate-coated immigrants, telling them to go back home and all type of stuff. And now it's starting to make sense, because a lot of that did not start happening until certain people got into office. And the people that got into office was about building walls and deporting people out of the country. And now President Trump has once again been elected, and he is pushing a lot of people out of the United States. So they are wise enough to know that in order to execute this the proper way and to avoid or prevent certain riots, it is best to cause some type of divide. So just as they did in the past, they find the simple differences and they highlighted them. They highlighted the differences, grab onto their puppets and plant those puppets into the community and give them whatever support they need. And these puppets have charisma, they were funny, and people navigate to them. It's the same strategy that was used in the past that are being used today. And next thing you know, there are friction between these groups. One group is saying that they're better than the other one, and people get offended, and it caused a divide. And then after that, they are able to take their militaries and their soldiers and forces and deport the people out of the country. Keep in mind now, this is stolen land. It is stolen land, right? So the only people who have a right to say anything about it, not saying that the message is bad, everyone needs to protect their borders, but it's the wrong messenger. You do not have the right to tell anyone that they need to get out of the country or deport anyone out of the country when your forefathers, your ancestors stole the entire land. Even in your laws, it states that it is a crime to hold on to stolen property. If you know the property is stolen, it is a crime to hold on to it. And that is why they want you to forget about the past. They want you to remember everybody else's Holocaust, but not your own Holocaust. Because if you remember your Holocaust and teach it to your youths like they do to their youths, then you will be able to call them out when they do things like this. So we should not allow anyone to forget the past crimes that was done. The only people who really have a right to say anything about anyone invading the borders would be the natives and the people of African descent. Nobody else. You see? And that is why vanguards are necessary. That is why we should not be relying on anyone. Because if we do, history is going to continue to repeat itself over and over and over. There'll be no stop to it. So the strategy that worked many years ago, that caused us to turn against each other, has been rebranded and is being used again. And it is just as effective. Once again, it's causing us to divide ourselves amongst each other. So with that I say, we have to build up the Caribbean in a manner that we don't have to rely on anybody else. We have to create opportunities in the Caribbean, and we should not have to rely solely on the government. In fact, we should be able to do this outside of the government. We have to create the type of Caribbean that would make our youngsters don't have to leave or don't want to leave. And the same way in Africa, the same thing needs to happen. We should not be relying on all these Arabs and Chinese and Europeans. The African man, the African woman, we need to become self-reliant. Our youths need to see this.